Cheers, big ears, and welcome to the Beach Travel Wine Podcast. We are your hosts, Leanne.
And I'm Lyle.
And we are not your usual travel influencers. No, we've decided we want to be travellers that travel under the influence. Okay, good joke?
Reasonable.
Well, there's plenty of more where that come from. So join us as we travel the world, one wine at a time. Hola, Lyle.
Buenos dias,
Leoneta. So we're back in the International Podcast Studio, sitting in a hotel room with the aircon blaring because it's quite warm outside, isn't it?
Yes, I think it's going to be 42 today.
Yeah, so we decided we're not going to go out walking in the hot sun like mad dogs and Englishmen.
So
We're going to do our podcast today all about, I think, one of Lyle's favourite places so far, Salamanca.
Salamanca. What can you say about Salamanca? It is absolutely beautiful.
And the other thing, because Lyle loves his history, there's a fair bit of history there, but let's talk about how we got there from Cáceres.
Cáceres, yeah.
Yeah. We got a taxi from our parador there and went to the Estación de Autobuses.
Sí.
And I think we were the only ones there. There wasn't an office open or anything, remember? It was dead quiet.
But it's a beautiful station.
Sure.
Really modern.
Yeah, but just it's a good hint, like travelling on Sundays in some of these smaller Spanish cities, you're not going to get anybody to help you at an office, at all. So just make sure you've got your tickets and everything organised before. So it was a good bus ride.
Yep.
Oh, was that the really good bus?
That was the economy...
The super economy.
Super economy,
That was just a bonus when I booked it. And I'm like, that sounds interesting. Was still cheap. Do you remember how much it was?
I think it was about...
it doesn't matter, like €20 or something.
Yeah. Maybe a little bit more.
So the bus, instead of having your normal 4 seats across, like 2 in the aisle and then 2, this one had 3 seats. So 2 together, which were really wide, and then the aisle and then 1 seat. And the bus had about 10 people on it.
Yeah, there was very, very few people on it.
So it was beautiful, comfy wide seats, Wi-Fi, aircon.
And we both fell asleep.
We did, like within about 10 minutes. It was a great trip,
yeah.
Really. And we actually stopped for half an hour in a little town that we don't know how to... Oh, no, was that Palencia? We stopped remember there was a half-hour stop. I don't know why. We had stretched our legs. And then we hopped back on the bus for another hour and we arrived to Salamanca. And once again, that was a nice bus station. But the only problem is we needed a taxi and there were no taxis. So what did I do? What did Miss Clever Dick over here do?
Yes. Hats off to Leoneta. She called a taxi on her phone.
I did. I actually rang and... They said something to me in Spanish and I'm like, necesitamos un taxi, estación de autobuses para 2 personas. So I was able to tell them, where I was, what I wanted, and next thing you know, a taxi arrives.
Yeah, perfecto.
See? And it was only like a short taxi ride to our accommodation. Now, this was an apartment that I booked through booking.com, but... I wanted, because we're going to be there a week, I like a little, if I can, get outdoor space, and also, as I said in an earlier podcast, a kitchen which generally has a washing machine. And where the owner was there to meet us, Pablo.
Yep.
And the apartment was a lovely, had a nice separate bedroom and a living area, and the best part was it had a courtyard. A beautiful shady little courtyard off the living area, wasn't it?
It was actually really, really comfortable, and I think it was about 118 Australian dollars per night. We were there for 7 days.
Yeah, it was great. But just outside the front of the apartment, and you'll see this if you go to our Instagram or our website, is the cathedral, the main cathedral in Salamanca is right there. So it was a pretty impressive backdrop to where we were staying. Yeah. Yeah,
it was. Yeah, well, I think the thing was we were sort of so close to the main historical sites, but because we were behind the cathedral, it was really, really quiet.
So quiet.
I really, really impressed with the location. And then you go the other way, and you've only got to walk maybe probably less than 10 minutes, and you can walk along the river, which was beautiful as well.
Yeah, we'll talk about that a bit later. The river, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Salamanca is like a really historical town, as we said before. But I think what it's probably known for is it's a university city. Yeah?
Correct.
Yeah, and it's got some old and historic unis. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, when we arrived at the bus station and we drove up to the taxi, the thing that really stood out to me was outside of the old town, the streets are quite wide, and it's actually really, really modern.
Sure.
So there's 3 universities there. One of them especially is very, very historic, very, very prestigious. But the thing about the Spanish universities is that they're quite cheap.
Attend, you mean?
Yeah, the tuition. Like for between €750 and $1,200 for a bachelor's, and for a master's, I think they said it was $1,000 to $1,500
for total.
Total. Oh, that's per year.
Oh, per year. Okay.
And if you're Spanish, you can actually apply for free tuition.
And do you know how many students?
30,000.
Okay, and there's quite a high percentage of
25% are foreign.
International students, yeah. And that actually gives the city a really nice vibe, like there's, lots of young people and cafes that are cheap, and, it's it has a really, interesting sort of flavour to it, doesn't it, the university?
Yeah, well, it's...
What's that, the really historic one that looks a bit like a church? What was that university? Do you remember?
I do.
And you're sort of walking around thinking, is that a church? Is that a convent?
Yeah.
But no, it's actually a university.
Yeah, well, originally I think to start with it was a convent to start with, but it's called the Universidad de Pontificia de Salamanca.
That was the one, I think, that was left abandoned for a little while, that building, and then it became a university, yeah? I think that's what
originally it was the College Real de la Compañía de
Jesus.
Is the new current headquarters to the University of Salamanca. It's considered to be the most beautiful and
prestigious, isn't it?
And grandiose example of Baroque architecture. And actually we did a tour with Mark on our last night, the tapas bar and the history, and he was saying a lot of the students now complain about the opulence and of the building and how it was built, because obviously
slave labour and stuff.
More or less slave labour, but that's what labour was in those days. But I'm just not sure what the alternative would be. Do they pull down the old one and build a new one? I'm not sure.
I think it's probably able to be cheap because there are so many tourists go there and they charge entry to do tours and things, so it probably keeps the cost of their tuition down as well, being historical as well. Because did I say this before, the whole city centre is a UNESCO
World Heritage.
Like the whole old town.
Yeah, the whole place. Yeah,
and it's not small.
No. And a little bit more history. It was commissioned by King Philip III.
The building of
the building of the university, and Queen Margaret of Austria to express their gratitude for the work of the Jesuits all over the world.
Well,
the Jesuits...
They have like queens from all over the place, don't they?
Orders. Yeah. The funny thing about Salamanca is you've got no idea how many conventos or monasteries, depending on where you come from, but they're just everywhere. And you've got Dominicans, you've got Franciscans, you've got... you name it. And the funny thing about it, they didn't like each other.
No, it's funny. Well, we found on one of our walks we came across a convent, and we just walked on in and had a little tour around Convento de San Estaban, or in English, St. Stephen's, right? And the outside of it was pretty impressive, but walking around the inside was, like the courtyard and the glacier inside. We've got some great pictures and stories on that. And I'm sure Lyle's got some history for me on it. Have you?
I do.
Oh,
I do.
Surprise.
The frontage of the building itself began in 1524 and was finished in 1610. So just the frontage itself, took 54 years. So obviously, there was different architectures.
Sure, and they add on to it.
Yeah. Now, the amazing part about this particular building is that this is where Queen Isabella I and Christopher Columbus got together and were negotiating for the trip to the Americas.
Yes, so Christopher Columbus has said, I want to go to the Americas, Are you gonna...
But he'd been to 3 other countries.
They'd all given him those.
They'd given him the lemonade.
Yeah.
Which was France, England, and
Italy,
which of course then, would mean that Isabella I, was in a pretty good negotiation stand, and so they did it. We actually went into the room
where they signed it.
And it was about 50-50.
Yeah, that was pretty. Yeah, I don't know that he got what he thought he was going to get, but in today's money, it wasn't much. But back then, I think he ended up quite a wealthy man. So that was a nice little explore on our little walk, wasn't it?
Yeah.
The other thing we probably should talk about, even though I said we weren't going to talk about boring old cathedrals, is the cathedral, yeah?
Yeah, there's the Nuevo, which is the new cathedral, and the old cathedral.
And the thing that's unique about this one is it's actually 2 cathedrals joined together. Now, this is the cathedral that's outside our apartment, and the funny thing I liked about it was it had stork nests on top of it, and the chicks are almost as big as the parents now, and they're making an almighty racket, which was quite funny. But the quick thing of the history of this church is the old church, they decided after it was built it wasn't really elaborate enough, and so immediately they started to build the new church. So what's the sort of timing and the history?
Well, they say it's the new cathedral,
which is what, 1500s or something?
It's the building was started in 1513 and completed in 1733. So it's taken a while, but that was a new one. It was commissioned by Ferdinand V of Castile, and the old cathedral is known as the Cathedral Vieja de Santa Maria, and that was started in the 12th century, and it's Romanesque style, Gothic, and finished in the 14th century. So,
and it's still quite impressive, that old church though. Like, it's got the original floor. Like, honestly, OH&S, you wouldn't be getting away with that in Australia. But the great big sort of stone floors and the columns and everything. It's still like
well, I think. The thing for me, the uniqueness of the old cathedrals, you could tell it was original.
Sure.
A lot of the other cathedrals, they continually renovate them and keep them up to scratch. But with the old cathedral at Salamanca, you could tell, even the paintings were actually... some of them were painted directly onto the stonework, which I really hadn't seen before.
Sure.
And what they said too is because the bell tower and the new cathedral is 92 metres high, and what they said is part of the reason they joined them was for the
support.
Yeah, support to support the bell tower.
Yeah. It's one of the cathedrals I really like from the outside the most. I've got some really lovely photos of that golden hour with the the huge big dome, and it's very picturesque
Well, they call Salamanca the Golden City.
Yeah, it does look like the whole city's just, has gold,
Well, it's because of this. All the buildings are sandstone.
Sure.
Are built with sandstone. So, obviously putting the light up against the buildings, and it just
and the dark
exacerbates the whole.
Yeah. Very, very impressive. As we said earlier, talking about our apartment and where it was, and Lyle mentioned that, he said 10 minutes, I would have said 5, sort of, just down...
But I'm older than you.
Down the road a little bit, across the main road, we were on the river. It's with the Rio Tormes, see?
See.
And it's a beautiful river. It's not that, it runs into the Douro,
the Douro River. It finishes in the Douro, and it starts at the Navarra Donda.
Oh, where's that?
And it's
280 something.
Yeah, it's 284 kilometres from the Douro River.
Good to know, right? For all those canoeists out there, but this is one of Lyle's favourite things. Lyle was just, every day you just love Salamanca. I love it. We went for a walk together most days, but a couple of days Lyle went out on his own, and you just loved that walk along the river, didn't you?
Oh, it was beautiful. It really was. It was, and on one side you've got I actually did both sides, and on the modern city side, it's basically sporting fields.
Yeah,
all sorts of sporting fields, and but on the old city side, it was just glorious.
Well, they've got a track for you to walk and a separate bike track. And there's trees along the river, and parks along the river, and exercise equipment along the river, and bridges. There's the old Roman bridge with, I think it had 26 arches on it. To walk across.
26 arches. Yeah.
Once again, lots of lovely pictures. On our Instagram and our website. And one day Lyle went on his own, and I'm so annoyed I didn't go, because I'm always after the photo opportunity. I mean, Lyle did a good job, but I would have got a video. Apparently there's a bullfighting school.
See.
And there were these guys. You've got to go and check it out on the website.
Young teenagers
got a bull head on a wheelbarrow.
Yeah.
And one of them's charging at the other guy who's dressed up in his,
Well, he's got the bull,
the cloak, or the
whatever you call it.
Yeah, the
the red thing
that they wave in front of the bulls, and he's sort of they're practising. It was pretty. I was dirty. I didn't go.
Yeah, well, we only found out that there was that's what it was, a bullfighting school, because we did a tour on our last night with Mark, and he said, he said that's a bullfighting school, and anyway, not the next day, but the following day, I came back, and there was a guy, probably in his a pretty big guy in his 40s, and although he didn't have the wheelbarrow with the head, he was using the cape and doing his moves, and they're very, very serious. You could tell that was it was almost a religious experience for him. But I was blown away.
And another couple of days, we'd walk up the river, and then we'd decide we'd just find our way home up through the city, and that's where we found San Estaban's that first day, and then we walked up and found a post office. I sent a couple of postcards off. And we walked through a park, and we found somewhere to have coffee. It's a really great city to walk around, isn't it?
Yeah, it's. I loved it. Yeah. But can we go back? You actually discovered something on the new cathedral.
Oh, I did. That's right. Oh, thanks for bringing it. I'd nearly forgotten about that. Now, do you know what I don't know if you know the story about this, but on the all around Salamanca, there's frogs, in the tourist shops, and space astronauts, and one of my friends, who's also a Spain lover, Leonie, said, "Have you seen the astronaut and the frog yet?" And I'm like, I had no idea what she was talking about, and so of course, thanks Google, I found out that on the cathedral, the new cathedral, built in the 1500s. There is an astronaut in the decoration, somewhere, and a frog, and the frog is actually sitting on a skull head. So I went on a Sherlock Holmes mission to find them, and on the intricate, carvings all around the front door, and you'll see a photo, and there'll be there's a video on our Instagram. There is an astronaut. And I didn't know there were astronauts in the 1500s when it was built.
No, see.
So that's a mystery.
Well, I think that's what we were talking about earlier. They continually, do maintenance.
It's a mystery.
Fair enough, it's a mystery.
And the frog is on the university wall on the skull head there. So that's the claim to fame from the frogs, and now it makes sense. Yeah, that's pretty interesting. So before you even go into the cathedral, it's you can find that astronaut there. They're pointing out.
And the and just we did go inside the cathedral. I can't remember even how much it was. It wasn't much.
No, but we were more interested in seeing the old cathedral, which joined it. And as I said before, I quite like the outside of it.
Yeah, but the inside, very typical of the Spanish.
Same layout and
and absolutely
decorations and lots of
overwhelming.
Yeah,
and
once again, I've got some nice photos of that, so it's worth having a look at that. Did we finish about the river though?
No. One of the things that I loved about the river, and when I went for a walk, was the temperature.
Oh yeah, it was lovely and cool, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was so nice. Up till about maybe even midday. Like the temperature, I don't know whether we were lucky or whether that's part of the climate in Salamanca, but it was just so lovely. And then, of course, as you're walking along the river there, you're seeing, all the young people on the stand-up paddle boards and the and sculling in the rowboats, and so it's again
people fishing too. We saw
we saw fishing, and again probably because being a university town.
True.
It was fabulous.
Yeah, and I find people were friendly and helpful anyway. But we sort of stopped to look at the map. At the end of along the river, not because we were lost, but I was just trying to figure out which way it was best to get to the post office, I think. And this lovely guy just stopped and spoke to us in Spanish, but he's basically telling us, to get back to the city, you go past this many bridges, and it was they're just so helpful, aren't they?
Sure, and just but that's been everywhere we've been.
Yeah.
Just going back to the bridge over the
Roman bridge.
The Roman bridge. Yeah, that was built between 27 BC and 14 AD.
Oh wow!
And that's just I don't think there's documentation to actually prove it, but it's the way it was built and all that sort of thing. I did read though
that not all the 26 arches are original.
No, they had. There was I think 15 are original.
Yeah,
and the rest were.
But I managed to get a nice shot of that with the oleander flowers and the poplar trees there. That was really nice. So
and the walk is about maybe 5k, I suppose.
Well, from where we were to the end and back.
It was that. So it's not a real long walk, but it's certainly worth doing.
Yeah, we love that. So I'd like now to talk about probably my favourite part of Salamanca for me. Is Plaza Mayor. Now, most of these Spanish cities have a Plaza Mayor, and we've talked about the one in Madrid, and but this one in Salamanca, I think it's been voted as well as the most beautiful Plaza Mayor. In daytime you're like, oh, okay, it's nice, it's
better. It's more nice.
Yeah, sure, but you're just like it's really nice. But when it comes to life, this Plaza Mayor is at night time. But I'll let you just tell us quickly a bit about the history of the Plaza Mayor. I can see you chomping at the bit. You've got your history hat on.
Well, it's Baroque style. It was constructed. It started in 1729 and was completed in 1755. It was built in two phases. 1729 to 1735, and then again 1750 to 1755. King Philip V ordered the construction. of the plaza for, what do you reckon it was for first?
Bullfighting.
Well, why would they have a bullfighting school if they didn't do bullfighting?
A lot of Plath Mayors were used for bullfighting.
Sure, originally.
Yeah. But this one looks like it's symmetrical, doesn't it? You know, like a lot of the other ones have different sized buildings, but this one looks symmetrical. It's actually not, you know,
that's right.
However, it does look like it is, but it's there's sort of ground floor, which is all the shops,
restaurants, cafes,
ice cream shop, ice cream shop, jewelry shop, restaurant, and then there's 3 levels above that, and they're all privately owned apartments.
There's
like quite a lot of them.
There's 88 arches, and there's 247 privately owned balconies.
And you mean arches? How many arches?
88.
Wow. And above each one there's a round plaque of a famous person.
A famous, anybody famous Spanish.
Where's the one that we sat under one night? Was
Wellington.
Wellington. Okay.
Yeah, because he beat the French.
He was a hero.
He beat the French defending the Spanish, even though he was a POM. But anyway.
And there used to be a garden in the middle, and they took the garden out and moved it just sort of outside into another plaza, so the whole garden's been remade there. So now, literally, there's nothing in the middle of the plaza.
Apart from a very, very large plaque that says it's UNESCO World Heritage.
Okay, yeah. So let me tell you what I liked about it, and I'm sure if any of you have looked at our Instagram or the website, you will see I got the moment we're standing there. It's about 10:20 at night. We've had dinner, we've had a few drinks, you know, it's the lamps have come on, like the street lights have come on, and the lights are on in the shops. The sky's gone that magical midnight blue, or cobalt blue, and in 1 second, every light in that plaza turns on, like instantly, and everyone starts clapping and cheering, don't they?
Yeah.
We had no idea.
Yeah.
Wow. I got some amazing photos, and then we went back another night, and I actually got the moment.
Yeah, because tell why you got the moment. You made me go up there and time it for when you said it's around 7:20. It's right on 10:20. Sorry, it's right on 10:20 because we checked it out so that when the next time we went, Leanne could film the actual.
Well, I actually got it anyway that night, I think.
Yeah, and it was brilliant.
It's magical, and so that's definitely going to stay in my memory banks as something really, really special in Plath Mayors. You know, you're sitting there having a wine, and you know, bam, all the lights come on, and the cheering, and people actually coming and sitting on the ground in the Plath Mayors. You know, like the crowd's building. You know,
for the lights.
Sort of from 9 o'clock, and obviously the uni students coming into groups, and there's tour groups, and there's family groups, there's kids playing football, there's teenagers playing football. You know, there's just everything's happening. You know, it's all, and you're thinking what's going to happen, and they're all there for this 1 second. You know, of amazingness with the lights come on and they all clap, and you know, everyone sort of hangs around and thinks it's pretty good, and and then they all turn off at 1 a.m. which is probably a good thing, because if you're staying in one of your apartments, it would be pretty annoying to have the lights on all night.
Well, I think one thing that I'd love to add is that I thought was special is you've got groups, probably 10 guys, and they're all dressed traditionally, and they're actually musicians.
They're called La Tuna.
Oh, I see.
Yeah,
okay.
And Pat told me that, my Spanish friend.
Oh, okay. Yeah, but I thought that was fabulous because they're all in the traditional gear, and they're really, really good because they're students and teachers from the university that are musicians and singers.
And if you're game, you can go to our story highlights in Salamanca and see Lyle doing a little jig to the... one vino too many, and he couldn't help himself.
I reckon it was probably about 3 vinos too many.
Yeah.
But it was, look, you just get captivated by the atmosphere.
Sure. So there was this night that we were sitting having a drink once again, and I was eavesdropping, and I heard this girl talking to another girl. They were American, so obviously speaking English very loudly, and which was easy for me to eavesdrop. And they were talking about doing like a tour, and they found it on Airbnb experiences. And so a light bulb goes off in my head, and I'm just like, okay, dumbass, why don't you have a look and see what's on there? And so yeah, that was I think it was Thursday. I don't remember what day it was. But so I booked an experience for the next night with a guide, an English guy who lives in Salamanca, has been there for quite a while, and like a 2-hour sort of history tour, which I thought Lyle would love because he loves history, and then just someone sort of explaining what things are. With a bit of a couple of drinks and tapas thrown in along the way. So, so we rock up to this the meeting point, and there's just Lyle and I, and we meet Mark, who a really friendly guy, and we head off on a bit of a walking tour. And I think, I really enjoyed it because there's so many things you don't know, and about the buildings, and but you probably can explain it more than me, some of the places we went. I just say, like, my part of it, we went to a couple of really nice bars, and my favourite was the University Bar, which was actually an old stables.
Yeah, horse stables.
It literally was around the corner from our apartment, and we had no idea it was there. Oh. And shame we left it till the last night to do the tour. We probably would have gone back there because the food was shit, but the wine was good and cheap.
Yeah, well, yeah. The places that Mark did take us on the tapas, it was very much, I suppose, university students would go there. Yeah. And the food was very, very cheap, the tapa, and really not that good.
No, but we were very late, though, going, and he was quite surprised that people were packing up. But he did tell us that day, or the day previous, the universities had closed for summer holidays.
Correct.
So a lot of the bars and restaurants obviously stay open for the university students, and so they were sort of taking the opportunity to not hang around too late with their food, I guess. And some of them weren't open at all. Not many, but there was a couple that weren't open at all. So Lyle, tell us a bit about the history that Mark told us about.
A couple of things that stood out to me were you can actually see a very faint orangey red writing on some of the cathedrals and colleges and the university buildings. And what that is...
It looks like old-fashioned writing, doesn't it? Like the U's are like a V, and, like it's very flowing and manuscripty writing.
Yeah. And what it is, and they say it's in bull's blood.
Ox blood,
and it's the graduates, graduation.
They'd all write their names on the outside.
On the outside of the building, and it's not bull's blood. It's or ox blood, whatever you want to call it.
It's clay, isn't it?
Yeah, it's clay and oil and paprika.
So yeah.
Okay. So, but yeah, you sort of.
It's not bright. It's sort of faded.
Yeah. You don't really see it
until it's pointed out.
It's pointed out to you, and then you go, "Oh,
that's
okay."
Pretty clever.
And then he pointed out, and we had watched one of the reasons why we actually went to Salamanca. We watched a Michael
Portello, I think.
Portello documentary, and his family were from Salamanca.
His father was from Salamanca.
Yeah, and he during the Civil War, Michael's father, and there was 5 kids, I think, or something.
There's 5 brothers, and Michael's father was the only one that went with the non-fascist side.
Yeah, the Republicans.
Yeah, and his 4 brothers went with Franco, and so the whole family was divided.
Yeah, anyway, with and there is actually the historical archives.
Yeah.
And what Franco had done is they had secret police and all that sort of stuff.
They kept a little card or file.
They kept a file on basically any organisation or political party or basically anybody that might
have looked sideways the wrong way at them.
Yeah, that weren't fully supportive of the nationalists.
And who was that, the statue that you're pretty happy to see?
Yeah, and during that particular documentary, Michael talked about the professor, right? Actually, he was the deacon of the university, and originally he had supported the fascists because he thought that it would bring more stability. But what happened was, there was more and more evidence of, civilians being murdered, children, and corruption and whatever. And he stood up to Franco and basically said, this is all wrong, and started.
And he was put under house arrest, wasn't he?
Well, not. Yeah, for a little while, but then he came back out, and his name was
Mono something, wasn't it?
Yeah. Miguel de Unamuno. But anyway, he got back out, and the story has it that he passed away on he was killed or passed away
on the 31st of December.
Yeah, 1936.
That was actually when he was under house arrest. He died at his home.
Okay.
Yeah, and so now, on the 31st of December, was it? Or January? 31st of December.
Yeah.
They have like a memorial service, or, and because he was a hero in the end. So the mayor comes and the head of the police comes, and, so that's... So Mark took us and showed us where... this guy had lived and died, called the House of the Dead, and he reckons one day he was standing there and he saw the curtains open.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
So he showed us that. There's another building I want to talk about too, though, that I haven't mentioned, which I thought was really interesting, is Casa de las Conchas. And it's a great big building opposite the university you were talking about, and it's covered in... Las Conchas, which are shells, and they're like that standard sort of shell shape, and they're placed on the outside of the building, very symmetrical, and that was built, centuries ago as well. And it wasn't built because of the Camino de Santiago, because there is one of the routes of the Camino de Santiago. It's called the Silver Route, that actually goes through Salamanca, sort of starts in Portugal and goes through Salamanca. He was one of the priests of the Order of the Santiago. So, and now that building is the town library. So I went and had a little sticky beak in there. But it's another sort of iconic structure in Salamanca that people sort of go to see that building. Inside, it's got a lovely old courtyard with a well, and then you actually go into the library, which has like the low ceilings with the wooden beams and everything. We walked around that with Mark as well. And anything else that you sort of got out of that?
Oh, just finishing off on the archives.
Sorry.
It was the General Archives of the Spanish Civil War, and now what they've done in 2007. They've the Historical Memory Documentary Centre, created by the Historical Memory Law. So they've kept all the information.
Yeah.
But instead of it being,
archives, they're now memories.
Archives, now they're memories, and that was to help, I think, quell. Because I think there's still a fair bit of anxiety and not anxiety, but tension,
feelings,
about the Civil War.
Sure. And that Gran Via that we walked up, that main street, which has the university on one side, the Casa de las Conchas on one side, and it takes you straight down to, you can see all the way, it's quite a wide street, it was obviously built for horse and carts, and it takes you all the way down to, you can see Saint Estaban's, which we talked about before, where Christopher Columbus met with Queen Isabella. So that's a really impressive main thoroughfare.
Well, that's also got the palace. The 40-room palace.
Oh yeah, that's right, because the Queen has a house there. Well, not the Queen, she died, but the royal family have a 44-room house.
And why did they have that mainly there for?
So they can come and watch the bullfights.
Yeah. See. But Mark was saying now that they don't do it because it's
becoming a little bit politically incorrect.
For them to, but they do still really like the bullfights. Anyway.
So that was really great. And I'm going to try and put a link to that tour in our on our website in the show notes and pictures that go with this, because if you're ever going to get to Salamanca, it's a nice thing to do. Have a chat with Mark, and
absolutely.
He buys you a drink, and you buy him a drink, and I think our tour was from 8 o'clock to 10 o'clock, and I think we wandered home at 1 a.m. because we couldn't find anything else to eat or drink. So, and that was with Mark. He just was happy just to keep chatting.
Oh yeah. It was 5 hours instead of 2.
Yeah. So, but it's a very interesting conversation. Just lots of stuff about the things about living in Salamanca, and I could see why someone would want to live in Salamanca. It's
it's beautiful.
Nice, really nice vibe. We enjoyed that tour, didn't we?
Yep.
Finally, we're going to talk a bit about the food, which is always one of our favourites. I don't know that Salamanca had the best food that we've had, but we had some places were really nice, and some places were really cheap.
Yeah.
Yeah. The Pablo, the owner of the apartment, sent us a really like a link with all the different restaurants, and he had it listed out. The best international, the best tapas, and that sort of stuff. So we sort of took his advice because he's
on the first night we definitely did. We went to the tapa bar at the Plaza Mayor and the Gonzales and tapa.
Yeah.
And the food there was spectacular. I've got to say.
Shishami, is it? The tuna?
We had that, and it was absolutely beautiful. And I think it was about €12, and you got about, I don't know, maybe 8 little slices of tuna. But it was just beautiful. And $12 for tapa obviously is really, really expensive.
It is, isn't it?
But we had some, I think we had some gyoses there as well, which were beautiful. I think it was more, I'm like Leanne, I sort of thought the food wasn't as good as we've previously had at some other places.
And what we did do here was, because we had an apartment with a fridge, we sort of bought some sandwiches and stuff, didn't we? So we had a cup of tea, and then I had some yogurt and boiled eggs, and bought some sandwiches for lunch. So we basically just had one meal out, which was at night. But I just felt like one night, just something, I know this sounds ridiculous, normal to eat. And I felt like Thai, but I couldn't find a Thai restaurant, but I found a Chinese restaurant which had amazing 5-star reviews, all 5-star. And so we found that, and actually Mark, the tour guide, was really surprised because we actually went quite a way out of the old town to find this restaurant. He said tourists never do that. They all sort of stay in that old town area. So we walked up there, and it was so nice that we went back twice. We
went back on the last night,
was really
because
fresh,
and we had exactly the same thing.
We did, yeah,
and it was just beautiful. And I think the one thing I did notice, because when we were walking, we stopped and had a cerveza at a bar there. One thing I really noticed was when you got out of that old town, the prices dropped quite considerably. Even though the old town I felt was quite cheap, because we work on about $500 a day Australian.
That's for everything, though.
That's for everything. That includes flights and insurances and all that sort of thing. And Salamanca so far has been the cheapest. We came in at probably $300 Australian, including accommodation, flights, everything.
Insurance, drinks.
Maybe that's why the food maybe wasn't as good. I don't know.
And we're walking along this, like one of the main sort of areas in the old town.
I know what you're going to say.
Yeah, and we're sort of looking at menus. They've got like the menus up, and one of them had. What was it? Nose.
Your favourite?
My favourite, nose and tripe stew.
Yeah, and...
God, I'm just like, I couldn't even go to a restaurant. And then they actually had pictures of it. And then the next place we went to had pig's faces. and they were like piglets, like little faces of roasted pigs' faces. It was horrendous, wasn't it? I'm like, oh Lord.
Yeah, so that was different. But was any of the food bad?
No.
No. A couple of the tapas that Mark took us to were cheap and cheerful, but they're probably not so cheerful. But generally, we had no complaints. But I think it's more so that the food in Spain has been so amazing everywhere you go, that when it's that little bit...
I just think because it's a university town, and they do try and keep it cheap and cheerful for the uni students. There were some really upmarket restaurants that we didn't go to, which I'm sure were
to be fair, that's probably more likely. We didn't go to those places.
No.
So.
But the restaurant we did go to, the Chinese one, was the best. Like, it was amazing.
Yeah, and it was sort of like a bottle of wine and 3 quite large dishes for about $50 Australian.
Yeah, it was really nice. And then a nice walk home in the cool of the evening. It was really good. And like the other thing that was really different and cheap in Salamanca was the coffee. Like everywhere else you go, you order coffee con leche, and they give it to you in a cup. But this time they bring it to your table with just the coffee in, and then they pour the milk in out of a jug at your table. Like nowhere else has done that. I just found that a bit interesting. But you can get like a cafe con leche and a tostada de tomate for €2, which is $3 for breakfast.
Yeah. That's cheap.
Yeah, really cheap. And there were little cheap cafes, sandwich shops up where you could obviously, students want to buy,
€1.15.
Yeah, so I think you could definitely do it cheaper. And even if the accommodation wasn't that expensive, but if you didn't want to stay that close to the city, which I did.
I'm sure you'd find cheaper.
Yeah.
But for $118 a night,
Australian.
Really?
Yeah, it was great.
Why bother?
Yeah.
And you're right in town, and it was quiet.
So, and just down from our apartment, there was a lovely little park as well.
Sure.
Yeah, pretty little, and it's like a bit of a lookout viewpoint. So. I know we say every time, would we go, how do we rate it, all that sort of stuff. But, the first thing I'm going to ask you, though, Lyle, is where was your favourite place to have a vino in Salamanca? Oh, see, he doesn't know when he hasn't got his...
Plaza Mayor.
Plaza Mayor?
Plaza
Did you
Mayor.
say Plaza?
I did say Plaza Mayor. You can't go past it.
No, of course not. Yeah, that was my favourite as well. Although... I also liked the university bar that Mark took us to, because it was an old stables and it was pretty funky, right?
Sure. But the vino was pretty average there as well. But
it was getting quite late, so
I think
all tasted the same by that
I think
time.
it was about $1.50, €1.50 for a glass of wine. So you're not going to expect the highest quality. But I just found with Salamanca, because we had 7 days. We didn't have to rush anything.
Yeah, we just really enjoyed the atmosphere of it. And as I said, Lyle walked every day. I did most days. We just had a nice sort of easy routine, and, we just walked different way and explored a bit, and then, had an after siesta and enjoyed the courtyard that we had, and, did a lot of reading, and then we, went out sort of in the evening.
And it just had... the vibe.
Yeah, you loved it, didn't you?
I kept on saying to Lan, I just love the vibe of this place. And the vibe is it's safe, it's friendly.
It's clean, it's upmarket.
It's so clean.
Yeah, and even with, student population, it feels, it's clean, it's safe, and, it's got a really...
Well, that was the one thing that, not the one thing, but one thing that did stand out to me about the Plaza Mayor were all those people, and it's 7 nights a week. It is spotless.
Well, we went back through the plaza the next morning on our walk, and it was early,
Yeah.
And there was people everywhere the night before, and there's rubbish, and after a crowd, obviously. And by early the next morning, it's gone. I think they must. Well, we did, and that night with Mark on our tour, we're walking home, they're already starting to clean.
Yeah.
So it's a never-ending cycle, isn't it?
Yeah, I'd probably only got one regret. The whole trip of Salamanca is that Leanne convinced me to dance in the Plaza Mayor because she thought it was going to be a good idea. And, you know, the silly part about it is I did it twice.
Yeah,
on
like
the same
he's
night.
saying I make him do it. Like, I did not make him do it twice. And, you know, it's been received, you know, really well by, you know...
Your grandchildren. You're
Dancing
the
Queen.
atolls.
See, Dancing Queen. So, Salamanca, we loved it.
Perfect.
Again, just a very different, laid-back, enjoyable, historic, pretty city, yeah?
See, the Golden City.
The Golden City.